evening and welcome to the Whiskey Lover Society with me, Gert Retief. And tonight we are looking at the Wild Turkey 101. So this is my journey into the bourbons and the American whiskies. I did a couple of reviews of the Evan Williams, Elijah Craig, Larceny, also the Buffalo Trace. And I must say I quite enjoy the bourbons and the American whiskies. So I got a suggestion from one of my YouTube followers to have a look at the Wild Turkey 101. So today I am going to review the Wild Turkey 101. I also asked my assistant Jeeves to give a little bit of background information with regards to bourbon and the rules of bourbon, and because I think it's quite important to understand, like Scotch, you guys in America also have certain rules, and it is my journey to educate myself on what that rules are. So I give the floor to my assistant Jeeves to give a little bit of information with regards to the rules, and maybe also teach my Scottish colleagues also something new. So take it away, Jeeves.
Bourbon rules. Bourbon must be made of a grain mixture that is at least 51% corn. Bourbon must be distilled to no more than 160 U.S. proof, 80% alcohol by volume. Bourbon must be aged in new, charred oak barrels. Bourbon may not be introduced to the barrel at higher than 125 proof, 62.5% alcohol by volume. Bourbon which meets the above requirements and has been aged for a minimum of 2 years may, but is not required to, be called straight bourbon. Bourbon aged for a period less than 4 years must be labeled with the duration of its aging. If an age is stated on the label, it must be the age of the youngest whiskey in the bottle. Only whiskey produced in the United States can be called bourbon. Bourbon that is labeled as straight that has been aged under 4 years must be labeled with the duration of its aging.
Having done the rules, and I'm not even sure if it's all the rules, but at least you now have some of the rules with regards to bourbon and what is bourbon. So we take a look at the Wild Turkey 101. It is a Kentucky straight bourbon. It is produced by the Wild Turkey Distilling Company. It is 75% corn, and apparently that brings out some sweetness to the whiskey. It is a highly charred barrel or casks. And they say it is charred at a level 4, which apparently is the highest. They call it the alligator skin, so I presume that is the deepest char that you can get. And I presume that will also bring out some nice flavors to the bourbon as well. So I'm just going to give it a pour, do a nosing, tasting, and my first review of a Wild Turkey. So on the nose, it's very sweet on the nose. So you have a little bit of an alcohol. I get that. It's more of a nail polish remover type of alcohol note to it. So it's quite strong on the alcohol. A little bit of a caramel note, a little toffee note, a little bit of a butterscotch note. But the alcohol definitely is quite strong, especially if you agitate it a little bit. You do get that same nail polish remover type of alcohol note. A little bit of a cinnamon note coming out. I also get a little bit of a sweetness quite so similar to rose water, and a little bit of a hard candy note. So it's quite nice on the nose. And I do get the corn. It is not a familiar note to me. It's not something that I get in a Scottish whiskey. So I do get the difference between the Scotch and the bourbons. So on the taste, cheers. The difference between the Scotch and the bourbon is quite obvious. So I do get the sweetness. I do get the hotness of the alcohol. It's quite warm in your mouth. I do get a caramel note. Quite a sweet caramel note actually. A little bit of a toffee note. I do also get a little bit of a toasted oak. And I suspect that comes from the toasted barrel. So it is quite nice. So it is bottled at 50.5% ABV. So I think it is a good idea to add a little bit of water just to see what the effect of water will be. When I do that with a Scotch, I normally bring out a little bit of the sweetness and I tone down a little bit of the oakiness. Also, what I forgot to mention is this is aged between 6 and 8 years in virgin oak, as explained by my friend Jeeves. And I'm going to be back to add a little bit of water and give my notes. So I added about 1 teaspoon of water to see what the effect's going to be. And on the nose, with a little bit of water added. Not much difference. Maybe a little bit more vanilla coming out. A little bit more sweetness, but it's not a huge difference with the water being added. And on the taste with water added, cheers. Much sweeter. The corn is a little bit more pronounced or dialed up a little bit. So I get that corn note more predominantly. It's quite nice. Also, I get a little bit more cinnamon now. This is really nice. I think this is something that you can, as a daily sipper. This is something that is not oaky. It is something that's sweet. In your aftertaste, you get the sweetness. You get a little bit of the cinnamon note, a little bit of a vanilla note that stays in the mouth. A little bit of a dryness in the mouth also. And it's quite pleasant. So I'm quite happy for buying this, and cheers for the suggestion. And as usual, if you have another suggestion that's not going to break the bank, please leave a comment and help me educate myself and maybe educate some of my Scottish colleagues in the art of the bourbons. So remember to like and subscribe, and I see you next time. Cheers.